So this video will show you how to take apart and rebuild a one-piece crank style of bottom bracket. So this bike here has what's called a one-piece crank, where this crank arm here is connected to this crank arm over here on the other side, and it's all one single piece. So this piece of metal goes through the center of the bike and connects over here, which is different than the more common type of bottom bracket and crank system as we have over here, where this crank is connected to the bottom bracket here, and then the bottom bracket on the other side is connected to the other crank arm, which has the chain rings on it. So these two different kind of systems are pretty much incompatible with each other. You'll notice that the hole in the frame here is quite small compared to the hole we got here on this bike with the one-piece crank. It's very large. With one-piece crank, everything's quite a bit larger, and I think it works a lot better. I've had a lot of good experience with this one-piece crank on this bike. Required very little maintenance, and it took me a lot of distance. So all we got wrong with this bike here today is just that this bearing is a little bit loose. Just over time the cone has become a little bit loose. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to take it apart, and I'm going to clean everything out while I'm here, and I'm going to tighten it back up and make it so that's the right tightness. So the first step we've got to do here is remove the left pedal from the bike. So the pedal that's on the side that doesn't have the chain rings on it. And I explained this in my pedal repair video, but what you got to remember when you're dealing with a left pedal is that a left pedal has a left-handed thread, which means you use the left-hand rule, which is you want the pedal to come off, so you point your thumb in the direction you want it to go, and then your fingers show the way that you turn the wrench. So this is a backwards thread, so normally when you're turning it something clockwise, you're tightening it, but it's a left-handed thread, so we're actually loosening it. So push down here to remove the pedal. And it's always a bit tight, but this time I was able to get it off just with my hands. So now we got that off. The next step here is to remove the lock nut from the outside of the bottom bracket here. And for that job you just need a big adjustable wrench. The beauty with one-piece crank sets is that you don't require any specialized tools to work on them, but you do need a quite large adjustable wrench to be able to take this lock nut off. So have to remember here that these threads in here are the same as the threads here in that they're left-handed. So to loosen off our lock nut, again we use left-hand rule, and we loosen in the clockwise direction, just like this. A little bit tight. There she comes. Once you get it started, it's not very hard to take off. Thread it off my hands. So that threads all the way off, and then it comes down over here. So there's the lock nut. And after the lock nut, there's this spacer on there as well, which you can just take off with a flathead screwdriver. Spacer. And after that, all you've got is your cone, which is right here, this piece of metal here, and it's got these two little indents, and you can just use a screwdriver just to loosen it off. Remember, again, left-handed thread, comes all the way off. So there's the cone off, and after that you've got a cartridge bearing which comes off as well. Be gentle with it. And there it is. Quite large, really big ball bearings in it. And then we'll move over to the other side of the bike. Now this side, just like the other side, inside there's a set of cartridge bearings, and you can just use a screwdriver to pull them out from the surface there. And after you got them out, then you can just change the angle a little bit, and there it's off. So there's all the hardware outside of the bike. Everything looks like it's in pretty good shape. A little bit of rust on the backs of these things, but that's really just because I rode this all through the winter, and in the winter there's lots of salt and sand which gets all over everything, and really does a number on bikes, but should be able to clean it up and get it working good as new. So as you're cleaning everything up, you want to make sure you inspect all of the surfaces of contact. So this is the cone from the left side of the bike that you saw me take off first, and you want to just look around in here on the shiny part and make sure that there's no significant pitting or any little holes or scratches or anything in there, because that's going to cause a lot of friction. And I've been really impressed with how this one's been holding up. I've had this cone on the bike ever since I bought it, which was almost 3 years ago, and I put over 5,000 kilometers on it, and who knows what the previous owner put on it, and it's just still in really great shape. So that just goes to show you that one-piece cranks are really great for being used in all sorts of weather and for commuting and being really reliable. The bearings are also in good shape. You want to inspect them and make sure that there's no pitting on the actual balls either. And you want to make sure that the casing that's holding the bearings is also not bent or anything. You got to be able to roll the bearings inside the cone and inside the cup without the casing rubbing on either piece. You also need to remember to clean and inspect inside the actual cups where the ball bearings touch on the outside. Make sure that they're nice and clean and there's no pitting in those either. And these ones here are great as well. So now it's time for reassembly. And if you want to do a good job at that, you're going to need lots of grease. So just use the grease to fill up all the way around the inside of both of the cups, and then use your finger to, of course, smooth it around and get it all inside that cup there. Like that. And then do the same for the other side. Just like that. Don't be afraid to put too much in there, because in this case too much is not a bad thing. So now to start for reassembly, we start with the one-piece crank on the right side of the bike, and we start by putting one of the two bearing sets onto the crank like this. Make sure that it's facing this way so that the ball bearings are pointing up like this, so that this surface will be touching the cup when you put it in. And then yeah, the next step is you just thread the crank through there. Try not to get too much grease on it, and then rotate, and then just push it right in like that, and just leave it there. And then we're going to switch to the other side. Now the first piece of hardware we put on from the other side is the other cartridge of bearings, which goes on this way into there. Then you put on your cone, drop it on like that. And remember, this is a left-handed thread, so left-hand rule. Want to thread it on, rotate it this way. So it's the opposite, of course, of a right-handed thread. There it goes. Lots of threads to get through here. Just get it on there like that. Don't worry about it getting too tight yet, because this works just the same way as pretty much any other bearing system you got on a bike, where you got a cone and a lock nut. You've got to lock the nut on there so that the cone is in a great position, so that it's on the verge of not rocking back and forth, and also so that it's not too tight where you can't rotate it efficiently. So put the spacer on, and I put the lock nut on. Again, left thread. Just like that. So right now I'm going to start with it so it's a little bit loose like that, and then I'm going to try tightening this and see if when I tighten it, it will get things in pretty much the right spot. So I'll take my adjustable wrench, set it for the right dimension here, and then tighten things on like that. See how that feels. So getting the tension right here is just a game of trial and error. I think I got it where I want it. It's nice and smooth, and I can't feel it rocking at all in there, so I'm happy with that. All that's left is to put my left pedal back on. So now thread the left pedal on. It's a left-handed thread, just like everything else in this tutorial pretty much. And there it is, as good as new. So this concludes my tutorial on taking apart a bottom bracket on a bike with a one-piece crank set. I think one-piece cranks are a really great system. They're really reliable. The only disadvantage is they're a bit more heavy than the traditional style of bottom bracket and crank. But anyways, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching.